Good evening, everyone. Good evening. How are you? I know some of you aren't with me yet, so I'm going to wait for a few more of you to join. And while I get myself all comfortable, hey, Kwame, you're here. I'm going to add you straight away, actually. I was going to introduce you, but I'm just going to add you. Hey, guys. Hey, Zainab. So, Kwame, are you ready, my friend? All right, here goes. So while I'm waiting for Kwame to join me, thank you everybody who's on so far. Kwame!
I'm going beautiful.
Hello, my darling, how are you?
I'm great. What's Kat? Hold on, I'm turn off Jamaican Road.
Remember, this is Kwame, we are in lockdown, my friend.
Oh, okay, all right.
We're in the room.
Sin.
In her house. She's joined us, by the way. Hey, Kaz. Hey, Ebs. I see you, girl.
Wonderful.
Yes. So, so it's just me. So we've been. So just to give everybody out there a bit of a flavour of what we've been doing. This whole week is Mental Health Awareness Week, as many of us should know. I mean, you know, it's been published, promoted everywhere, and that's a great thing. And what Kaz and I have been doing is hosting live discussions each and every evening with special guests at 9 p.m. And tonight I am delighted. I am excited.
Stop it, man.
Kwame McPherson, who is an award-winning author.
Thank you.
His book is entitled Date with Depression.
Yep.
And not only that, but Kwame is a mental health advocate as well, amongst many other things, by the way. So Kwame, I'm so happy to see you, first of all.
Yes, I know, right?
I'm so happy that you've joined me. Hey, Diane. Yeah, you know, as I said, we have a series of guests lined up this week. And you are the only one. So no pressure right there.
Oh, wow.
Extra special. But just to give people a bit of a background about how because we actually know each other, and just to give people a bit of a background before I embarked on the Now Chat Show journey that I'm on with my co-host Az, who, you know, founded this platform to inspire. I actually dabbled in chat showing before, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. It was great fun, actually. It's on YouTube. No, I don't buy YouTube. So
that was with your good self, Kwame, and we had a show called Chronicles, didn't we?
That's right, Chronicles. Yeah, that's right. That's right, yeah.
We had some amazing guests on, and literally, you kind of showed me the ropes because you were the consummate professional. You know, in that, and we had a great rapport. And of course, things have moved on since then. You've written a book or two, and you know, you've done some exciting things. You've spent some time in Jamaica, etc. And of course, now I'm now the Now Chat Show co-host with Kaz. But I wanted to give you that mention because that's where it all started for me in terms of you know, being on a chat show. So I'm delighted to have you here. And now flip the tables on you. Before it was us interviewing others, but it's now flipping the table on you and actually interviewing you. So so thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
Today was a beautiful day, by the way.
Yeah, you know, I didn't leave my house because I'm writing, which is what writers do. You know, sometimes it happens. You know, but yeah, no, thank you for this.
Can I just say, Kwame, I've never seen it. I'm loving this lockdown beard, by the way. I'm loving the lockdown look.
Yo, listen. I was walking the street yesterday, or the day before, and a friend of mine drive up, and I didn't say I should blow me. And she said, "How are you doing?" I said, "Boy, I'm good, you know." She said, and then, you know, talking, and then we're gonna part. And she said, "I love the beard. It does make you look sexy." I'm saying, "Yes, I keep in the beard. Keep the beard, baby.
Keep the beard. The beard is, this lockdown look is looking good on you." So yeah. Anyway, sorry. We don't.
So thank you for this. Thank you for this, because it's always great to partake and to share and to learn also, and just to talk about my journey and everything else. But there's a friend of mine who just came up, actually, Mitch. He's in the States somewhere in Texas, so I'm just giving a shout out to Mitch.
Oh, is he joining us? Hi, Mitch. Thank you for joining us all the way from Texas.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's you're right. We had some great fun on when we hosted Chronicles with Kwame and Janelle. It was great fun. And anybody wants to check that out, it's on YouTube. It's called Chronicles with Kwame and Janelle, I think it was. Great fun, lots of guests. Kaz, that's where I met Kaz for the first time. So thank you for that.
Show, didn't we?
Yeah, it was a great show actually. It was a great platform, you know, and I liked it at the time. Yeah, I've gone on to write a number of books. This latest one is about my date with depression, which is mapping my.
Just say that again. The title is My Date with Depression, right?
From mental uncertainty to self-fulfillment. It's going to be reversed though. There you go. It's probably reversed anyway.
Watching it, you can maybe type that in for us. That would be great.
Yeah, I will do that actually. That's good idea. Yeah, so it's been a while because I didn't write anything for myself, and when this book I had completed this book actually, the interest in it I didn't realize would have been so profound and so much, and then I began to realize that coming from a male perspective, especially a black man's perspective, is and talking about being vulnerable and opening up that way was unique in itself, and to actually have it documented in black and white, you know. So that was really so. Yeah. So since our time on the show and everything else, I've had a lot of time to reflect. And like I said, I've written many books, contributed to many also, but this is my first.
That's the other thing actually. You describe yourself as an author. Let me get it right. And essentially, you're a writing consultant. People come to you if they want to write a book, if they want to write a novel, and you coach them through that. So that's amazing. And as you say, you've written a number of books yourself. But the book, obviously, that is in the spotlight for us today that we're going to talk about is My Date with Depression. And it's all about you and your journey and what you went through. Yeah. You know, so I guess let's start there. Like, share a little bit about that.
All right. Yeah. Well, especially now, funny enough, in terms of what we're going through, in terms of the time that we're living in, it's interesting because I was just reading through aspects of the book, and I realized how significant it is in terms of the issues that can cause someone to be going to a place of depression. You know, anxiety being one of them. In terms of my personal journey, I didn't even realize I was going into that phase until someone else pointed it out to me, my close cousin. But I'm just taking a step back. I've done a lot of things, you know. I've done lots of stuff, you know, all over the place, all over the world, in a sense, you know. Lots
of great stuff, by the way, in case any of you are, you know, great stuff.
Great stuff, you know. I grew up in Jamaica. As a matter of fact, I have to give a shout out again to Calabar, because Calabar is my alma mater.
Hey, Leo.
And so I have to give a shout out to my brethren them from Calabar. So coming away but it's interesting because when you're growing up in Jamaica, there's no room or no forum for us. You can't be seen to be vulnerable as a man, as a Jamaican, you know what I mean, really and truly. And it's only coming away from Jamaica to a great extent. And I started going through my life experiences that, you know, you start to realize that in order to maintain good mental health is to be able to talk about it, or talk about issues that you're going through. So my issues began when I had migrated to Canada. So I lived there for quite a while.
When was that? When did you migrate to Canada?
2003.
Right, okay.
2003. I migrated to Canada. Yeah, it was a great opportunity because I was living here at the time, because I had migrated from Jamaica to here. You know what I mean? Did the work stuff, did the, you know, college stuff, university stuff, all of that. So then I said, I wanted to go somewhere else, you know, just to experience being somewhere else. So I ended up going to Canada, and I liked Canada at the time. And it was a beautiful country. It still is. And yeah, I would
testify to that as well. Actually, we've spoken at length about Toronto and Canada. But anyway, continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So it was, and the beautiful thing at the time was that they were giving money away like nobody's business for you to start up a business. Because the intention for me, or for us, because it was myself and some business partners who went to Canada, and I was the one who had to get into set up everything else for everyone to come. I would start a business. And Canada is a place at the time, and I think it still is where as a small business, you're able to get funding to start. And even though I was a new immigrant into the country, they basically threw money at me. Now, my financial management awareness at the time wasn't as high as it is now. So when I got all this money, I invested it, but I invested too much too quickly. And then I had partners, other partners, and well, taking a step back again, the partners who, because we were all thinking of residing in Canada as brethren and friends. One of them couldn't get in because at the time there was a lot of tension with the Middle East because he's from the Middle East, and the other one he decided that he wasn't going to come. So I was the only one who went, and in the end, I ended up, like I said, getting all this money and stuff. I invested it. You know, I had a lingerie business, imported lingerie from Brazil. Yeah, seriously.
You should have told me that.
I know, right? This was coming back to it. I said, no, I don't want to tell you about that. So I had a laundry business, and an import-export business. And funny enough, but even back then, we were doing stuff in China. I was looking to do stuff in China. I had invested in property, you know, looking to flip properties and stuff like that. So I got a lot of money, and I invested it. And then basically what happened was, you know, things crashed, really and truly. You know what I mean? But they crashed from mismanagement, that's a lack of awareness, lack of business awareness, lack of reputable partners, because I had a partner who basically sucked me dry for the particular location. And the other partner who I flipped the homes with, we're still good, we're great friends to this day. And he actually went on a limb for me. So that's something that I really appreciate and feel dear about, because he's a good friend now. Anyway, so when all of that, when it started happening, when I started getting all the cards, not core cards, but getting cards from creditors and the banks, you know, it started getting on top of me.
So basically, a lot of the money that you were given kind of just disappeared.
Yeah, really, right? Even I even had a home that I was living in, and I took in someone, and in the end, he maneuvered himself to get into a position, and I said, you know what, take it and give me the profit out of it, and so on and so forth. So there's other things that were happening at the time, all of it. Even the ex that I had goes from here to came over, and all of that angst and anxiety came out, you know. And there's aspects in my book where I talked about the experiences that we've had. And one particular experience that jumps out at me is the fact that I couldn't talk, because being a man, you know what I mean, and you want to seem like you're in control of everything. So the facade that you portray is one of being in control. So you don't talk about the stresses that you're going through, which I was going through at the time, and I didn't open up to her in that sense. So I withdrew basically, and of course that caused tension, you know, and I was hiding, you know, it's like you can't explain what's going on inside, or you're afraid to explain what's going on inside because you feel someone's going to judge you based on the experiences that you're having. You know, you're afraid that you're not seen as the man, and you're not standing up and controlling and all that kind of stuff. So all of that egotistical stuff came in. And in the end, you know,
I mean, you describe it as egotistical, and yeah, probably there's a bit of that in there, but it's shame, isn't it? Like you went to, you know, you migrated to Canada, you had great aspirations, you made moves, you got money, you invested in property, started a business, all of these things, and then you lost all of that. In a country that you just migrated to, that all fell away from you, you know, and you had to deal with that. So
I had to deal with that, and then I ended up renting.
Like, how did in deling with that, or should we say not really dealing with it, because you and I have spoken about this, what happened? What were the things that you were doing or you weren't doing, or, you know?
Well, the thing is, I was internalizing it. That was the thing. I was internalizing the whole angst, the anxiety, the whole stress that I was going through. All of that was being internalized. And even when I was under pressure in terms of moving from one home to the next, because I had to move, and I ended up living with my cousin. And so that was it. And even though, it's almost like a massive shame, because, like I said, I'm internalizing all this feeling. I'm internalizing how I lost everything, and I'm an active person. I like to be on the move and doing stuff. And it's only when my cousin was able to get me a job at University of Toronto, which was great, and it's only when I started to withdraw, like I said, I completely withdrew, because I think I was on short-term contracts, and contract had ended, and I ended up working University of Toronto. I ended up working addiction, right? Smoke addiction organization, and then I left from there. Was working in Chinatown for Chinese, and it was after all those contracts ended that I started to really start to You know what I mean? I said, wow, what am I going to do? And didn't know what I was going to do. And I ended up, I used to stay in her basement. She had a basement apartment. But I just ended up just locking off, you know? Started isolating myself. And not, again, like I said, I didn't talk about what I was going through to anyone.
So when you say locking off, what do you mean? Do you mean that you wouldn't go out, or do you mean that excuse me, you started to cut certain people off, or what? Yeah. Describe that. Sorry.
I wouldn't go out. I would tend to have the curtains drawn. You know, so I really withdrew. Into myself in that regard. And sometimes, you know, I'd sleep and it's complete darkness, and I wouldn't know it's morning or night because, you know, curtains are drawn.
Wow.
Yeah, that happened for a little while, and because
how long would you say that was for?
That was probably about 3 to 6 months, because my cousin wasn't around, and because she's working constantly, so she didn't see me in a sense, you know what I mean. So if it went, so for example, when she came home, I walk out to the house and I just walk, you know what I mean. I end up walking, and probably at that time, I started to find myself in a way, but I didn't recognize it because I started to meditate. I started having the self thoughts, not suicidal thoughts, but the thoughts about failure, thoughts about, you know what I mean, I hadn't achieved what I wanted to achieve, thoughts about, you know what I mean, the impact it was having on other people, you know, because my whole actions and experiences was, and so those are the thoughts I was having. I didn't have suicidal thoughts because I knew I was here for a particular purpose. I just didn't know what it was, you know.
You still felt, even though you maybe you didn't reach the point that you wanted to take your life in your thoughts, you still felt hopeless. You still felt like a failure, and all of these toxic thoughts are just flooding your mind, right?
Yeah. And the fortunate thing for myself was that I had positive people around me. So because they could see in me what I didn't see for myself, you know. And I remember once going for a herbal bath.
So just on that point, sorry, you when you say that they saw in you what you didn't see in yourself, does that mean that at the time you didn't realize that you were essentially in some kind of depression?
Yeah, and also they saw the other side, which was how what I could achieve. They could see the greatness in me, basically. You know what I mean? I couldn't see for myself, but they could. And they could see the other side, which is exactly what you said, the demise of that greatness.
Mm-hmm.
And what started happening was I started having particular experiences, you know. And I remember once, like I said, when I went with my ex, I think we went to Africa 2006. And it was that particular trip that we went to Ghana in particular. And it was that particular trip that I started to realize my own worth, if that makes sense. You know, I didn't realize my worth until that particular trip, because even take for example, even when we were flying over towards Ghana, and this is how it actually got. There's an incident that took place. So basically, and this is how I was hiding, didn't, you know, just be. Anyway, what happened was that my ex was sleeping, right? So there's some drinks on a tray, and I think we were coming into land, and the flight attendant was coming around picking up glasses and stuff, and you know, so she hadn't finished drinking. I think it was orange juice at the time. So the flight attendant comes and says, "Is she finished?" And I said, "Yeah, she's finished." Right? She takes mine and she goes away. And as the plane is coming to land, she wakes up, right? And then she asks, "Oh, what am I doing?" "Oh, I said the flight attendant took it." You know, I didn't say to her that I told the flight attendant to take it. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. That's just a small example of not just being open. And it's no big deal, but it was a big deal. You know.
You felt like it may have had some knock-on. You overthought it, basically, didn't you?
Exactly. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying about the thing of withdrawing and hiding within itself. It just be.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I also learned the truth can't hide, that this part of the experience, because when the flight attendant came around, and she asked the flight attendant told her that I told her to take it up. Of course, you know what I mean. You know, and I was like, whoa. And so the entire trip was going off to a good start from then, right? So yeah, back to Ghana now, and I would love her for encouraging me to take that trip.
Mm-hmm.
because when we started exploring and stuff like that, and we went to the enslavement fort, the enslavement castle that they had on Cape Coast, and like I said, it's an experience. I always say that anyone who comes from the Americas or comes from the Caribbean needs to really have a connection with themselves. And it was going into the dungeon, the main dungeon that they had, where it was like just a life change. As a matter of fact, I've written it, and I think, and I always get emotional about this part, because I think it's as a writer, I can only explain it in the way I've experienced it, and how I've written it, basically. So I probably will talk about it in a bit. Let me see if I can get it, and let's go through it in just a brief excerpt. Okay, here it is. Okay, one of our first trips was to the Cape Coast Enslavement Fort, a whitewashed building on the Ghanaian coastline with parapets that overlook the beach and town. Our guide told us that from the parapets we could see in the distance the crucifix spires of 3 churches. And for sure, when we ventured to the top of the fort and looked over the town, we saw the churches and the spires, clearly against the bright blue sky, along with hundreds of people living within the city. Within myself, I find it ironic that those who profess to follow the Christ had supposedly loved their fellow man, allowed a cruel crime of humongous proportions to take place right in their view, or better yet, under their noses. What did that say about them and their quote-unquote religion? I was extremely puzzled. We climbed down the steps and made our way into the dungeon below the fort, and there I experienced another phenomenal spiritual moment that has stayed with me to this day. It was dark and foreboding, with a single bulb hanging from a wire, its light bouncing from the walls and a rocky roof, causing shadows to flit against the craggy walls. The atmosphere was stifling, and I felt I had been bundled in with another few hundred people, many of whom I never knew, into a room made for many less than that number.
Wow.
I felt the spirits calling me, and I was without doubt affected by their presence, the deafening silence embracing me. I was sure that there was an effect on the others too, since most of us, when we emerged into the bright sunlight, we were crying. And that's a small part. This is the most important part. Once in the dark, our tour guide showed us a rough line running parallel to the floor. He then showed us a window slit, no bigger than 1 foot high and about half that wide, high up on the uneven wall. Naturally, within the dungeon, daylight could barely be seen. He then explained that because the land on the outside was leveled with the bottom of the slit, anytime rain fell, the water made its way into the cell. Imagine hundreds of people packed in a space made for much less than that. Feces, urine, rainwater, grime, all swilling underfoot, knee-high or waist-high, even shoulder-high. And this in a confined, heat suffocating place. I cried. And
wow.
And that, basically, that experience made me realize self-worth. It made me realize that what I was going through was nothing compared to those who had gone before. And that's when the whole change started. That's when the whole change started in terms of me growing out of that space.
I mean, just listening to you recite that is really emotional and really moving. I mean, Kaz has said, Kaz commented and said that, she's been to Ghana. I haven't been yet. In fact, I was planning to go at the end of this year, and I'm still hoping that will happen. It's something, for me, it's a must, right? And to actually see and experience it. And Kaz said, that she recommends that every person from Caribbean heritage, or even, African American heritage, goes there to actually see what our ancestors went through. So just hearing you talk about that is so powerful, because you went from, it's like this roller coaster. You went to Toronto with all of this bright ambition. You embarked upon this new future, this new journey. That came crashing down around you. You ended up entering into it. In fact, you ended up almost creating your own dungeon that you inhabited through these thoughts in your mind, right?
Yeah.
And going to Ghana, it was like an enlightenment for you. So go on.
And you know something, and it's like the seed had been planted in Ghana. Because coming away from that, I was in so much conflict. I mean, conflict based on a religious background in terms of, because I was, you know, Baptist, even though I'm not a practicing in that regard, and then relearning about our own spirituality. I came away in so much conflict, believe me. And then I ended up going back to Canada, and actually got baptized, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the extent. And even when I was going through the baptism, it was the conflict of the ancestors and that element, and then seeing stuff on the wall. So even then I was still going through the stuff. And it's only when I started to rationalize that the religion is not who I am or who I was or whatever, I ended up going to a black bookstore called Knowledge Bookstore. My cousin actually recommended it to me. He said, "Oh, there's a black bookstore up the road." Yeah, I go up there, and that's when the transition actually started taking place. Because I started to learn about us other people. I started to come out of that space that I was in, and yeah, I read books. I entered writing competitions. As a matter of fact, that was the first writing competition I won was in 2007 from that bookstore. And that's the whole purpose, or my whole life purpose started to take shape. You know?
It's funny that you mentioned that as kind of the journey towards your enlightenment and coming out of that depression, because a couple of weeks ago I was, you know, I had a live with Tanisha, and you know, Tanisha is the global youth. The diaspora, and the whole basis of that conversation was, if you don't understand or you don't know where you're coming from, how on earth can you truly know who you are?
Yep.
And so for you, you'd gone through this really traumatic time, you'd gone on this journey, and this journey just opened your eyes. You had this kind of really spiritual and emotional experience that opened your eyes. And one of the things you said really touched me, which was you were able to say to yourself, you felt it so deeply that you were able to say to yourself in that moment, think about what these people, my ancestors, went through. Before me, they were in this tiny, awful space. With, you know, surrounded by each other's, like you said, each other's feces and urine, and probably people dead, and so that allowed you, I would suggest, to put things into a certain bit of, you know, certain perspective.
Yeah, listen, it's almost like standing up in front of an audience and being stripped naked. That's what it was like, you know, completely. So all the stuff was stripped away. So even though I came away from that in terms of the conflict I was going through, it was almost written that I would end up doing what I was supposed to be doing, because the ancestors, standing up in front of them naked, because that's virtually what it was. All the stuff was the stuff. You know what I mean? I actually stood up in front of them and I was naked, like the day I was born. And that experience, that moving experience, man, I tell you, because when you stand up in front of them, you know, you're naked, you know, there's nothing else.
As a man as well, right? As a man, and we're going to talk a bit more about kind of mental health, and particularly its impact on men, and how, you know, men haven't really been part of this conversation, and how really we need to start to encourage men to be part of this conversation, because suicide rates amongst young men are the highest. You know, in terms of demographic, they are the highest, and we have to do something about it. But just going back to obviously this journey, did you have any, and you spoke about your ex, did you have anyone to speak to? Were you able to speak to anybody at the time about your thoughts and your feelings and what you were going through?
No, I suffered in silence. And it's only when my cousin actually saw a difference in me, because I remember the day she said to me, "Michael, you're normal self." And that's when she actually recommended bookstore. She said, you're normal self. She said, something is happening with you and you need to deal with it.
Wow. Thank God for your cousin. Thank God for somebody like that who was bold enough, brave enough to
My cousin's outspoken, you know. My cousin, she would tell you, you know, the Jamaica, she don't hold back. So yeah, she told me, and she said, "There's something not right," you know. She said something not right. I said, "Yeah, what?" She said, "You're not normal."
Did the penny drop for you at the time? Because you said when you were in it, you didn't really realize what you were in. So did that penny drop for you then at that moment in time, and you thought, shit, something is going on with me and I need to deal with this?
Exactly. And like I said, and the beautiful thing was when she referred me to Knowledge Bookstore, and that basically blew my mind. That blew my mind in terms of learning about us as a people. Because even though I grew up in Jamaica, we did not talk about us. They taught about aspects of us, but it don't really talk. You know, it doesn't go into the nitty gritty. No, it doesn't go deep. You know what I mean? It's always on the surface. And when I started reading the books by Van Sertima, by Ben Yuckonen, and you know what I mean, Walker, and so many of our historians and ancestors, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X.
Marcus Garvey has mentioned, you know, Kaz made a comment earlier, and you know the famous quote about you know, people without the knowledge of their past or history is like a tree without roots.
Totally.
So if you don't know where you're coming from, you can't know who you are. It's as simple as that.
I really know. It's not something. It's like I said. And even when I hear, you know, everyone's on their own journey, and even when I hear people espouse stuff about, you know, I mean, us as African people in the West, when you really know, because you've had that experience of really knowing. You know what I mean? So for those of us, I always say to anyone, any African, I said, listen, especially from the West, I said, listen, you need to take a trip to the west coast of Africa, from Benin, come right back down, usually to Nigeria, Ghana, wherever, and experience that. And I'm telling you, come away being a changed person. And like
Trust
I said,
me, I'm doing it all. I mean, Biggs had joined us. I don't know if you're still on Biggs, but Biggs right now is out in Tanzania, and I'm loving the stories that he posts because, you know, it's just and Biggs is from Jamaica, but Biggs is somebody who, you know, I've got great admiration for. We've worked together and embraces his roots. He's out in Tanzania right now, and the things that he posts, and just the beauty and the richness and the greenness and the people and the, you know, and the stuff that he's building out there. I mean, he's been farming out there and stuff. To see all of that, and that was and still is ours.
Yeah, it is, and like I said, and even when. And the thing which I didn't share actually about that part experience of the dungeon, that was only the first part of the dungeon. When I was coming back out of the dungeon, and I don't know if they've done anything now, but I will never forget this as long as I live, because I actually said it's something that sticks in your mind. Coming up, because you're going down and you're coming back up, right? So when you come back up onto the level, you have the dungeon door, and there's a door to the left. Right? I will never forget this as long as I live. The door was padlocked. So I said to the store guide, "Why is the door padlocked?" And he said, "Because," and as a matter of fact, I cracked the door. I could, because even though it's padlocked, I could, you know, it was a wooden door. It was a wooden door, and I could crack, and trust me, the stench that came out of that room. And I asked him, I said, "Why did," he said, "Because up until now, at the time, they could not get the stench out of that room." It was in the walls, in the ground. I will never forget that as long as I live.
Jeez, man.
That was locked. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if it's changed now, but at the time, and that just blew me away.
And do you know, the funny thing is, you just made me think about the whole view that, I know we're digressing a little bit, but I think it's really important for us to talk about this. It's the whole view that others who aren't of our heritage can kind of judge and say, "Oh, slavery, oh, it's so long ago, get over it, this, that, the other, 400 years ago." You said you went there and the stench, the smell was still lingering. So when we think about it, why won't people, or it just stands to reason that trauma is still lingering and feeds into everything that, you know, the way we are, the way we interact with each other.
That's right. And I'm gonna join that, because Kaz just asked a question about how am I dealing with the pandemic, somebody who suffers from depression, and I like I said, I equate it to those type of experiences for me personally. And so, so even though we're going through this particular time, I always refer back to what our ancestors went through. That's my source of reference. That's my reference.
That's your grounding, right? That's what grounds you. Yeah.
Exactly. That completely. So when I look back at what our ancestors went through, and that's my starting point. So what we're going through now, in comparison to them, is no comparison, basically. You know what I mean?
Absolutely none.
And the thing that is what occurred to me is that the reason why a lot of us men, African men, black men who grew up in the West, I think, and I think as a part of it in my book too, is that I think at the time when they were splitting the families apart, right? Because when you go to Cape Coast in particular, they had a room for the females and the children and one for the men. Now, bearing in mind that they were taken from the interior to the coastline, the reason why I'm not, like I said, I just write. I'm a writer. I see things and I write. I have a vision about it. And what I think happened is that the reason why we weren't able to be vulnerable is that we couldn't be vulnerable in front of the enslavers.
Of course not.
You know what I mean? Because that alone, you know what I mean, would have, exactly. So
a weak slave, forget it.
Yeah, that's right. So the men had to be strong, not only for themselves, but for the women and the children. I think that is in our DNA to this day, because and again, like I said, that is my source. That is my source. I don't know about anybody else in terms of their experience or their journey, but I think that because we had to be that strong in front of our women and children, we weren't allowed to talk. We couldn't talk about how we're feeling. We died inside. You know what I mean? We want to die for them. We want to express and say, listen, I'm shackled. I want to do much more than what I can actually do, but we can't. So I think that is something that we have inbred with us throughout generations, and it has caused us to be the way we are today. That is just my view. And then they obviously have the societal things that come up on top.
That's true. I think I don't know if it's just, you're back. I was going to say, I think your screen froze for a little bit. I could hear you, but I couldn't see you. But I can see you now with that wonderful beard. How did you decide that you needed to, you've always written, but how did you decide that you were going to write this book, My Date with Depression, from mental uncertainty to...
Yeah, because what happened is that when the ex I went to Africa, we broke up eventually. And then it so happens that I started going out with somebody, another beautiful, I only had beautiful women in my life, and I'm blessed for that. I always teaching me lessons are something for me to learn,
You're a beautiful man, Kwame, so it makes sense,
Thank you. So what happened is that I was going over with this sister, and something happened. Even though I had transitioned and I was learning about myself and reading the books and doing going to motivational seminars and workshops, that was all great. But then stuff kept coming up, because I did a lot of work on myself, and I know that. And it so happened that we had an argument one day, and instead of confronting the argument for what it was, it was something else to deal with, I hid, and I then questioned myself. I said, why is this coming back up? Why am I, hey, Tish, something that also.
Hey, yeah, I've seen her as well, hey.
I said, why is this coming back up? So I actually went to her and I said, babe, listen, I know I've done a lot of work on myself, but there's something that's coming up that I can't understand. There's something that's deep-rooted and it needs to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. And she said, all right, so what do you want to do? I said, well, I don't know, I need help. I said, I need help. And she said, all right. So she then referred me to a counselor. Well, she went to her sister gave her the number and referred me to a counselor. And when I went to the counselor, that session was, it just blew my mind, because all the while, everything that I was going through, I was thinking all the stuff that I was having, the problems that I was having with women in my life, basically hiding from them and then stripping away all the layers and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, I did a lot of work on myself. But there was still that element, and this is why I talk about societal stuff, the other stuff that came up on top. And this other stuff was between my parents. So what happened was, my parents broke up when I was young, right? So I grew up with my father. Mm-hmm. And obviously, Caribbean man, Jamaican man, you know, sit down and talk about certain things. You know, get out, you know what I mean? And yeah, and it so happened that
you know, deal with it, suck it up.
Yeah, you know. So I didn't have that type of relationship. But the majority of us wouldn't, you know what I mean? Because that was a different time. They grew up in a different time. I grew up in a different time. I know, I can guess there's a transition that's happening for a lot of us. But the culture at that time for those men was different to what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, in the session with the counsellor, I sat down with her and I said, boy, I'm having this issue with the woman. And I was saying to her, I think it's because I didn't grow up with my mother, right? And so she said, okay, let's explore that. She said, who did you grow up with? I said, I grew up with my father. But I said, there was no female energy in the house, which is true because my father didn't remarry. He had girlfriends, but he didn't remarry. And then the counsellor said, no, you know, I think the issue that you may have is that you're modeling yourself on your father. And I was like, what? That's like, sideways. It's like, shit, yes, damn. Like, you know, like, I'm just a light bulb moment. That's what it was.
Wow. You know what? There's been a few comments actually about this because, as I say, you're the one and only man that we have on our series of lives this week, and I really thank you for that, and I thank you for your honesty, Kwame, because women have been having this conversation now for a while, but men haven't really been having this conversation. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Coach Carla said that it takes a strong man to seek help. You know, she said that Caribbean men don't generally, they're taught not to tap into their emotions. Yeah. Deanne, she said, we need to stop telling our boys not to cry.
Yeah.
You know, equating showing your emotions with weakness is wrong. If you are able to be vulnerable, that is your strongest moment.
Totally agree.
Strongest moment.
Yeah.
What do you think? Obviously, I can talk from my perspective as a woman about why I think men don't open up in terms of my experiences with friends, family, partners, whatever. But why do you think, from a male perspective, men find it so hard to talk about what they're going through?
Well, like I said, I think the root cause is historical, and then you have the societal stuff that comes up on top. And you know the stuff that men don't cry, men should be macho. You know, the movies, you know, all that kind of stuff. You see, it's drummed into our heads with all the other stuff that comes up on top, and that's why I had said that. You know, finding that when you go back and start from the beginning. You know, you can take away the societal stuff. You can strip away those layers, but you have to start. It's almost like, yeah, this is where you have to have a rebirth. You know what I mean? You have to go back to the very root and then work your way up. And like I said, sort of the societal stuff in terms of me going back to Ghana and finding the aspect of my ancestors and realizing how important that is as me as a black man, as an African Caribbean man from Jamaica. I realized how important it is. And then, like I said, there's all the other stuff that came up on top. And even my father's stuff, the stuff that, because my father didn't talk, you know what I mean? My father was never vulnerable. I can't remember the time he ever was. Well, when I had a discussion with him how much I loved him, that was the probably only time. You know what I mean? But
how was that discussion for you?
Because after I had, you know, the counseling and stuff, and I realized, you know what, you know, it's true. And I started to reflect on my experience. I said, yeah, I grew up with that. So obviously I've been modeling him. Yeah, I've been modeling. I'd have traits of him not talking, not opening up. You know what I mean? And obviously, like I said, the culture that he grew up in at that time, and then coming forward, right? So one day, you know, I went back to Jamaica now and spent some time. This is July. He passed away in September 2011.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, my dear. And so we got country now. We got Portland.
So you got a road trip to Porty.
Yeah, Porty, man. I love Portland. Portland is my parish, man. I grew up in Kingston.
Me too.
Portland, my parish. I love Kingston, but Portland is my parish. So he grew up that's where he's from. There's a place called Wayne Road, which is just coming outside of Port Antonio, and he grew up on Wayne Road. So yeah, man. So me and him went on this road trip and everything, and visit relatives, and he must say, yeah, this is my son. He must come take over from me when I'm gone, and you know all that kind of stuff, you know. And I said, Dad, you know, and I started to recall to him what I remembered how my mother and him broke up, right? Because it wasn't pretty. Because my father was pretty violent. I'm not afraid to say that. So he abused my mom. He's very violent towards my mother. And I remember the day when she left home, you know, and it kept replaying in my head, and I never lost that image. I remember hiding under the kitchen table when they were fling punch and pan and everything against each other. And I remember the day when my mother left the house. I remember the movie. I remember the movie. I can't remember the name of the movie, but I can't tell you the movie that was on the TV. And it's interesting how you have these anchors of things that happen in your life. And the song that was playing was being sung by Judy Garland about a train. I think it's called Choo Choo. I can't remember the movie, but it's Choo Choo. And anytime I hear the song or see the movie, I can tell that's the movie. But anyway, and I remember standing by the window and watching my mother go to the gate. You know what I mean? And I relayed all of this to my father, you know. And I said, Dad, this is what I remember. He actually, in the latter part of his life, ended up going back into church. And, so I don't think he was moving towards becoming a Christian. But when I said, why, Dad, yeah, that's what I remember. And he looked at me and he said, why, I don't remember that. He thinks about the movie I watched. Yeah.
Wow.
That what happened between them. Yeah, I said, no, Dad, this is exactly what I remember. But I said, but regardless, I said, you grew up in a time which the culture enabled what the behavior that you had. I said, you didn't know any better. And I love it the same way. Yeah, I told him, I said, I love it the same way. It's just,
that's so beautiful, Kwame, because we don't, I speak for myself again, but growing up in a quite a strict, often, Caribbean household, to say, I love you, Mum, I love you, Dad, and for my parents to say, I love you, I'm just going to be real out here, it was non-existent.
Yeah.
And I don't begrudge my parents for that, because I understand that they didn't have that.
Exactly.
So important. So it wasn't until, I married and I'm divorced now, but my husband at the time, he said to me, you never say, you never really say, I love you. I used to say, I love you to him, of course, but he observed my family and he said, in my family, we never say, I love you. He said to me, do you know, that's not normal. And I said, what do you mean that's not normal? Every family is different. And he said, no, that's not normal. It's not normal. You need to be able to express love. You need to be able to show love. And, I'm looking at a few more of the comments here. Tracy said that you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else. And you have to express and show love. And one of the most important loves, well, all love is important, but one of the most important loves from a parent's perspective is the father being able to show and express love to his son, to be able to hug his son, to be able to kiss his son, to be able to say, son, I love you, you're really special to me. That forms a foundation in younger life that sets you up in the future. And when you don't have that, you're constantly trying to make up for that and heal that and deal with that, So it's so important. Deanne said love is everything. It's so important that we speak not only life, but love into our children so that they love themselves and so that they can go out in the world and love and show them that they're worthy and they're worth something. Because when you don't have that, I think that's where those feelings of low self-worth, low self-esteem, those feelings come in. And you know what? Saying I love you when you're not used to saying it amongst your family might be uncomfortable at first, but you get used to it. And now we make it a point to say, I love you. At the end of every conversation, I love you. Because none of us knows, especially during this time, none of us knows what the future holds. And we don't know how long we are around, or indeed our loved ones are around. So, just to be able to say each and every day that I love you and thank you, and, just to embrace all of that is so, so, so important, really. And so for you to do that, Kwame, especially as an older man, and in reverse to actually show your dad that love, even though you witnessed a lot, you went through a lot of trauma through his behaviors and through your parents' relationship, you were still able to turn around and say to your father, Dad, regardless of all of that, I love you.
Yeah, because like I said, because I was able to put, it's like as a writer, I look at things in chapters, and I was able to put the chapters together and realize the theme through the story. You know what I mean? And like I said,
joined, by the way. Hey sis, you missed me exposing the family tea.
and like I said, when you look at the thread that comes through from when our ancestors were taken from the motherland and come right through, you realize that there's a common denominator that comes right through. And especially when men, like I said, when men are concerned, because women went through it too, but they were able to come together and be able to support each other. Like I said, we couldn't do that back then.
Oh, so Kwame, I don't want to cut you, but my sister just said, I love you. I love you too, sis. Do you know what? My sister, she's younger than me. I don't want to get emotional. My sister has taught me so much about love.
Yeah.
Really touched me, Kim. Kim, why are you coming on here and making me get all emotional and cry? It was her birthday on the weekend and I saw her on the weekend. But my sister is really the one who has injected so much love into my family. So,
That's
sorry,
beautiful.
I had to say that.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. And that's how it should be. You know, and like I'm saying is that, so this common thread that came through, so for my father, remember, his generation went too far from when slavery ended. You know, I mean, in its form that he did. You know, I mean, he wasn't too far from that. So he would have gone through that experience of not, you know what I mean? So there's a common thread, and I was able to.
Sorry, Kwame. People are telling me cry, let it out.
No, well, that's beautiful, man. Yeah, man, that's how it should be. You know, so the thread for us as men, as black men, actually, as African Caribbean men, and you know, I can speak for, is to realize that particular thread, because it's not something that happened today. You know what I mean? What's happening is not something that started yesterday. It's something that's been coming back from way back when. And when we get to understand that, and like I said, Marcus and wonderful ancestor said it, if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going. And it's exactly it. We have to know what went before. But because we're in a quote-unquote modern world, we tend to not realize the connection of that story. You know what I mean? Because it's all connected. And I was able to then realize this kind of story.
So, you know, we know that men often suffer in silence. Women can chat and we talk and we express. That's what we do. We do it quite well, right?
Yep.
But men don't. Generally, men don't.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say from a man's perspective that would encourage men to not feel ashamed, to shed the stigma, to just to be real, to speak their truth and to open up and be honest? You've done it, Kwame, you know, and I salute you and commend you. You ever since I met you, you've been such an inspirational person in my life, and I have great admiration for you. You've done that, and that's so much strength that you've displayed, and it's so powerful, and you're such a beautiful soul. But
thank you.
What advice can you give to men who may be going through some stuff, who feel like they can't open up, who feel like they can't be vulnerable? From a man to another man, what would you say?
Oh, just be real, you know? It's such about, and that's one thing I was going to say actually, that even if a woman's in a relationship or a partnership with a man, 9 times out of 10, he's not going to talk to a woman about what he's going through. It has to be a man. It has to be another man.
Really?
You know?
That's interesting. Yeah,
it has to be another man, because he's not gonna go deep with the woman that he's with. And again, like I said, it's something that we can trace back to when it has to be another man. So even like we may have mentorship programs, like for example, we have Manhood Academy, you know. So those are great things to have, because that's the
Manhood Academy, by the way. Manhood Academy were on here. Karen has asked, how can we teach our sons? And you know, some of the stuff you're saying, we can definitely do that. You know, I'll leave it to you to answer the question. But Manhood Academy is a brilliant organization that's out there doing exactly that, teaching our sons not only about their roots and their heritage. I think they did have an annual retreat to Gambia with young men. But just teaching them what it means to be a man, and it's all about that strength from within and that show being vulnerable. So how? In answer to Karen's question, how can we teach our sons? Karen's got two sons, by the way, so, you know.
I respect and admire all the mothers, single mothers, doing a great job, great work in terms of raising their sons. But I always think that it needs the input to have that balance. It would need to have an input of a male influence, and a positive one. You know, how can it? And like I said, there are brothers out there and there are people out there. If you can't find somebody within your circle, it's a matter of finding someone who you think who looks like a leader. When I say a leader, I mean who's real, who's sincere, who's genuine, who's open, who's approachable. Someone who yeah, just being. There's no facade. There's no height. You know, someone who's real. If you can find someone who can do that particular role, if there's no other male influence, that'd be great. Like I said, I talked about Manhood Academy. As far as the father, there's particular organizations that are out there that can actually support and help with a mother with sons or with boys.
And sending your boys, for example, if you are of African Caribbean heritage, sending your son to Pan-African school is a good starting place, because that is what, I mean, Paz and I spoke about Akalo the other day, and that's what his mother did. Obviously, he's of mixed heritage, but his mother did that. And look at what a powerful, impactful, dynamic advocate Akalo is, you know, for not just only for Black causes, but for all causes and for all humanity. And he's, you know, he's really got it down. And it may not necessarily be the father who's going to be that father figure. It could be somebody else, but really it has to be somebody who's balanced and grounded and is in touch with their own emotions and lets a child, a boy, know it's okay.
No, it can't say father figure. No, father to father. Courtney Brown's Courtney
Brown's organisation as well, which actually helps fathers to be the role models that our boys need, you know. It's so important. So listen, we've got about 4 more minutes before Instagram cuts us off, you know, because that's what happens. I know it's by the way, Kwame and I did a little test run earlier, and interesting test run. Kwame actually taught me that you can video call via Instagram. I didn't know that. So he was trying to connect with me, but he was video calling me. Anyway, now I'm sure, Kwame, you are an expert. We've got 3 minutes. 3 minutes. So I just want anybody else out there who has any questions to ask their questions. And in the meantime, Kwame, can you let people know where they can find your book? I think we put the title up so you can get it on Amazon. But where can they find you? Where can they DM you? If especially men out there watching.
Yeah, I'm all over. Well, I'm on Facebook as Kwame McPherson, Twitter Kwame MA, LinkedIn. I don't have a landing page or website as yet. Still in reconstruction. My email address is Kwame.
What's your Insta?
Maxkey. That's a good one.
Maxkey. Yeah. Sorry, go on. Your email address.
MAXKEY. My email address is Kwame, KWAME, MA, McPherson, MCPHERSON @gmail.com. So that's Kwame MA McPherson @gmail.com. But I'm all over Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn.
You're there about, man. You're there about.
so that's what people can find me, you know. But no, it's been wonderful. I really enjoyed. You know, it
has been wonderful. Candice has joined us as well. Thank you, Candice. I see you out there. And Candice has said, you know, obviously the conversation is about men, but she also said that women who have absent fathers also have their own issues as well. That presents their own issues.
Yes, that's true.
So
that's true, actually.
We need to heal, don't we? Really.
Totally. And like I said, and I think the healing we have, especially because we didn't growing up. What I've realized when I went back to Africa very quickly is that they have a rite of passage. They have a way of bringing children from adolescence into adulthood, a training, a way of guiding. We lost all of that because of the transition from the motherland to the Caribbean or to the Americas. So that is important in terms of who we are, and I think that we need to find the root of who we are as individuals and realize how important that is. That would help us moving forward. You know what I mean?
Listen, Kwame, we're going to have to leave it there because I don't want us to get kicked off. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, seeing you, miss you in real life. My Date with Depression, guys, find it on Amazon. It's a fantastic read. Got so much love for you, Kwame. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Catch Kaz tomorrow evening, 9 p.m. We've got a wonderful guest lined up for you tomorrow. And, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. Some of them coming.
All right, before it interrupts us, listen, Kwame, I'm going to love you and leave you. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and tune in tomorrow at 9 p.m. for our next guest. Good night.
Thank you.